Ace Podcast.
Paid the cost to be the boss. I paid the cost to be the boss. Look at me. You know what to see. See a bad mother.
Blood and Black Rum Podcast presents Black Caesar. Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum Podcast. I'm Ryan from the moonisdeadworld.net. I'm joined with my co-host Martin.
How's it going?
And we're back with episode 72. Chugging along.
The March to 100.
I encourage... Yeah, that's right. Once you get to 100, what do? You just stop.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, we're done. That's it.
Go out like Seinfeld.
That was the goal. 100 and done.
Go out like Seinfeld.
That's right. We're into syndication now.
Well, we were 10.
That'd be fun.
We were 10 episodes ago.
I know.
Whatever it is. Isn't it like 63 or 65?
Well, I think it's like 5 seasons technically or something like that.
No, I think it's like 63. It's like 60
Yeah,
episodes.
something like that. And you're into syndication. Well, we're into syndication now. So 72 episodes, quite a bit. We're coming up to our 2-year anniversary. As we said before, we're going to be covering the RoboCop remake because that's one that we've wanted to do just simply because we did not enjoy it when we saw it in theaters and we haven't come back to it since. And I think we're going to do an audio commentary for that.
And the vitriol will be great.
That's right. We're actually going to do an audio commentary so you can listen along and you'd be like, "Oh, that's the scene they're shitting on." Yeah, that's right. Okay, great. But yeah, so we're doing we've been doing a lot of horror movies and recent movies lately. Like we did previously The Mummy, and then before that we did Wonder Woman. So we've been doing a lot of recent, like current movies. But we're going to throw it back a little bit today. We didn't even really talk on last episode about what we were going to do this episode because we didn't really have a plan.
We were stumped.
That's right. But we came up with something good.
Especially because now it's not really anything particularly exciting to go see at the theater.
No, there's nothing out that's like, we've got to cover it. Because normally the only things that really cover in theaters are like things that really grab our attention, or like superhero films because they are like a series and it's easy. Yeah, it's easy to do them, and you've got a lot of content for years to come. So, I think like the next one that I kind of wanted, we talked about that I know that I kind of want to see in theaters is like Atomic Blonde or something like that. Remember when we saw that trailer for it in
No, we didn't bring it up.
No, we didn't bring it up, but we saw the trailer for it, and
I was the one that said I wanted to see it.
Yeah, it looks good, and I think it looks pretty cool, and goes along with kind of the superhero things that we normally do on the show.
I was just more like, oh, yeah. Well, let's go see that. Yeah. That looks like it's either gonna be a shit show or
looks like it could be something up our alley either way.
Yeah. It's got both sides of the coin.
Yeah, it's right.
It could be a shit show, or it could be extremely fun.
Charlize Theron.
Yeah.
So it looks good. So that may be the next one we cover in theaters. But today we're throwing it back to 1973. We're going to get a little funky in here. Hey! Yeah. Got some James Brown going on. And if you've put all that together, which I don't know if you really... I don't know if it's easy to put all that together and come up with the one film in 1973 that has all of those, but... Yeah, right. I mean, pretty many of them. But we're talking about the blaxploitation film Black Caesar. And I don't know if we've talked specifically about Black Caesar on the show. But
I think we brought it up.
Yeah, I think we did a little bit. I mean, we've been interested in covering it for some time now since I received it from Olive Films because they put it out on Blu-ray. I want to say it's probably been a year now since they put it out on Blu-ray.
We're not going to send you anything anymore.
No, they do, but they're flighty anyway, so it's just... No, I covered all the other stuff. I covered Coffee, I covered Foxy Brown, I covered...
but we didn't.
Hammer. No, we didn't on the show, but they don't send me the Blu-rays to cover on the show. They send it to me to cover
you should. Get doubles.
Yeah, I know, yeah. But we did...
Use a different email.
And at that time, we did cover Coffee on the show.
We didn't review Coffee, did we?
I mean, I think we talked about it a little bit on the show.
We talked about it, but we didn't review it.
No, we didn't review it, but we definitely... I remember watching it together, Well, I think we talked about it a little bit on the show.
Well, yeah, no, because you were doing it for for the blog.
Yeah.
Not for the podcast.
Not for the podcast. We haven't done it yet.
He's a whore.
I'm sure at some point we'll do coffee. Because
why not?
That's a big one. And it's got big ones in it.
I was saying that's about Pam Grier.
Pam Grier's in it, so it's got big ones. But Black Caesar was one that I've never seen before.
I have.
You have seen Black Caesar before?
Yeah, I've told you that.
I didn't realize that you had seen it before.
Yeah, I've told you that.
I that must just have slipped my mind. I don't remember you saying that.
I told you today, and like when we talked about it before, I'm like, yeah, I've seen Black Caesar before. I saw it in college.
You saw it in your history class.
Yeah.
They played it specifically for you in your history class.
Not for my history classes, because for my one history class, one of the upper level history classes I took was history of the Black Power movement, which was great in and of itself because the actual title of the class wasn't that. It was just like general Black history in America.
So you're thinking that you're gonna like learn about George Washington Carver and peanut butter? Or
something. I literally took it because my advisor she said, because I didn't really know what to take because most of the upper level history classes and American history class last week really were just kind of
they didn't
because they don't have like a huge history. It's not what the school is known for. It's known for education, communications, and meteorology. What? It's where Al Roker's
I know
alma mater is.
Pretty funny.
With it. But no. So my advisor, she said he's a great young professor. He's got a great mind. You should take a class with him. He's really good. Because he also taught lower level American history. Both the introductory courses, but I didn't take it because I took the AP US in high school.
Right,
got a 5 in the exam, and that's my crowning achievement in life. I'm gonna have that on my gravestone. But no, I didn't have to take it, so I didn't get to have a class with him. So I took it, and the class ended up being just what he wanted the class to be focused on, which was the Black Power movement,
and a lot of it was blaxploitation in film, right?
Well, no, not a lot, but we talked about it. Was one of the things we talked about because we first thing we had to do before we even got to class was read, before we even on our winter break, we had to read Malcolm X's biography, and we were literally given a 3-day notice.
Yeah,
and it's a 450-page book. So I chugged through that, but no, we covered Malcolm X and the Black Power movement, the Black Panthers, and we also talked about how all this impacted Black culture and coming having this awareness of this idea of blackness and then embracing it, and then with that black film too at the time, and we watched Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song and The Spook Who Sat by the Door, and I really liked it, enjoyed the class. I really liked him. He's probably my favorite professor that I had. And I took my rest of my upper level history classes with him, which also dealt with Black history stuff. But for one of my other classes, for extra credit, he was doing a little seminar teaching thing, and he was going to show Black Caesar and talk about the importance of Black Caesar as a film and how it impacted Black culture and Black cinema and the Black Power movement. And he said, just if for our class, you show up, you watch the movie, and you write a little thing about it, and give it to me. You get some extra credit, and that's what I did. And I remember sitting in the back. It's a 300-person lecture hall, and sitting in the back, and before we started, he's getting ready to put the film on. I yelled, "Hey, why?" Because it was right around Halloween, and me and this one guy that were in the same class, we asked him "Hey, why are you playing Blackula instead?" And he goes, that is a disparaging piece of trash and a travesty to black people. Don't ever watch that movie.
Really? Blackula?
And I haven't seen it.
I mean, I haven't seen Blackula, but I do know that it's pretty well respected, and I would say that Blackenstein is really the one that's the disparaging piece of trash because it's not really, it doesn't have anything to do.
I'm sure he would probably have disparaging remarks for Blackenstein.
Well, I think really what happened with Blackenstein, because I just watched it because Severin Films released it on Blu-ray. What happened with that is that Blackula did so well.
I'm just huh?
They were like, "Hey, let's pump this out."
But that's the case though with a lot of blaxploitation, though.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I think that a lot of them did very well. They centered on crime, and they centered on, the problems in inner city with whites and blacks living together, and it was easy to pump them out, and like then everybody jumped on it. It's a bandwagon that you jump on.
But it's so that's how like I came introduced to Black Caesar, and no, I mean because like there are a lot of like blaxploitation films that you would say like, oh, they fit the trope of being like, oh, look at that, it's a blaxploitation film, but they do have like very strong currents and motifs in them about being black in America. What is like being black? What is manhood? What is what's black culture about? How does it converge with white culture and the racial tensions and problems from that? And then like a bunch of these things like Shaft and like Superfly, like two of them, like they're very widely known and popular films and well known in blaxploitation that have those themes, but they're also like you can be like, oh, that's that's blaxploitation, like got like kind of like the stereotypical blaxploitation, but it's not like they're stereotypes. They've set the bar, and then it's these other films that come along that get pumped out because they do well. Like, okay, and then, you get, like, the ripoffs. They're like, we don't really need that. We'll kind of throw some, like, racist stuff in there and whatnot, and...
Yeah.
And then, but, hey, we're going to make some money off of it. Who cares?
Yeah,
and Black Caesar's not one of those films.
No, it's not one of those films at all. It's actually got a very, very explicit black storyline to it that really, it comes out throughout the film. And it is sort of one of the better films if you were to watch... something in the blaxploitation genre, and you weren't really sure, what is blaxploitation? It's one of those films that you can go to and see exactly how the genre developed and where, it's a better representation, really, is what I'm trying to say, of the blaxploitation movement than some of the other films within the canon. Fred Williamson, who stars in Black Caesar, was in a ton of blaxploitation films throughout. And I would say that probably maybe half of them are actually like good blaxploitation films. And that's not a slight to like Fred Williamson, but it's just I guess an observation of what happened with the blaxploitation genre is that it just got oversaturated with things that
But you can say the same thing with like Grindhouse.
No, yeah,
because
absolutely.
You got like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Hills Have Eyes, like and then like
then everybody was like,
I know, and then there's a dirge of shit you got also
exactly,
and
I think that's the case with blaxploitation.
It's like spaghetti. The whole
you never really know. Like if you're just setting out to watch a movie for the first time in spaghetti westerns, in blaxploitation, in giallo, you never really know. Like, is this going to be a good one? Or is this one going to be, kind of a generic, pumped out, like, let's do it for the hell of it sort of thing?
You gotta know blaxploitation was doing something right if the James Bond franchise decided to make a blaxploitation film and Live and Let Die.
Yeah.
Which is, Roger Moore's first Bond film is essentially a blaxploitation film. It's Bond in Harlem dealing with a black drug dealer and his black gang. It's a blaxploitation film.
Yeah.
So, if they're like, hey, this, by this, well-respected franchise, about spying and stuff. Let's put him in Harlem.
Yeah. And that's pretty much exactly what Black Caesar's about, is the crime in Harlem and how kind of white people are profiting off of it, while black people get the shaft. And they're relegated to slums, and some of them are homeless, and you see that quite a bit throughout. Some of them are working for white people and kind of doing like odd jobs on the side, as Fred Williamson's character Tommy does at the beginning of the film. And I think that's really, like, there's no mistaking Black Caesar at the beginning of the film. Like, this is definitely a blaxploitation film through and through. Despite the fact that it's directed by a white guy, Larry Cohen, It's most certainly it's a good representation of the film genre as a whole, and it's also a solid film in its own right, even though watching it in a contemporary setting, it may seem a little bit laughable at the time, but now. But at the time, even it was kind of tongue in cheek, as well as, it wasn't exactly meant to be taken as seriously as, some other action films or something like Death Wish, which we covered previously. It's not as, serious as those films. Let's take a break before we get right into Black Caesar, to talk about our beer that we've got on the show, because we do have a new one today. And we'll discuss that in just a second. Stay tuned, and we're going to hear from one of our podcasts that that are part of our podcast network.
It's Kevin and Jesse from Grab Them by the Pod, a member of the ACE Podcast Network.
Every episode, we discuss the latest news on Trump, Congress, and everything else in politics.
With experience in Congress, on the campaign trail, and lobbying, we bring you an unbiased look at the state of our union.
You may or may not agree with our politics, but I think you're going to like us.
Grab Them by the Pod.
You know you wanna.
All right, welcome back. So today we've got a new beer on the show. Haven't had this one before. I don't even know if we've had this, the maker of this beer before on the show.
I don't think we have.
I don't think we have.
I don't ever buy them.
We're talking about Lagunitas. And I've had a few Lagunitas beers before. I've had their Czech Pilsner. I've had their IPA. I've had a couple on tap because when I was in San Francisco, they had it all over the place. So,
I think I've had the IPA and then maybe one other thing Project 29 had.
Yeah, something like that. But I've never had this beer before. It's called the 12th of Never Ale, and it is specifically a pale ale, although it doesn't really specify that on the can whatsoever, besides kind of a description of it. It's their version of a pale ale, and to be honest with you, while most pale ales never really...
American pale ale.
American pale ale. Well, most pale ales never really, I don't think I'm ever really, astounded by a pale ale or anything. It's you're like, yep, that's pale ale. In this case, the 12th of Never Ale is really, really good. I like it a lot. And I was really surprised by this beer when I first had it. How tasty and refreshing it is. It's a 5.5% ABV beer, and while it's not technically a session pale ale in terms of the alcohol content, which you would expect it to be kind of lower in the 4s, in this case, it's almost sessionable. It's a very easily drinkable beer, and it's really good for summer too.
Nice hot days we've been having.
Yeah. They describe it as a pale, light, and somewhat hoppy beer. And I think that's really true. And I think what really comes out in the 12th of Never Ale is the spiciness of the hop character, which is really nice.
No, I like it a lot. I like pale ales quite a bit. As we've said before when talking about pale ales and IPAs, though, I think... too often the line's been so blurred now, you can't really... There's not a lot of people making, a traditional...
Oh, a regular pale ale.
Yeah.
No, not venturing into the IPA territory.
Yeah. Granted, an American pale ale kind of is more leaning towards the IPA side than the English pale ale.
Oh, for sure.
Which, you don't find English... Besides, Bass, you're not going to find English pale ales really around here, but... Or, whatever the hell Newcastle's pale ale is, but I haven't tried that because it's just too expensive to give it the college try. But no, I do like pale ales quite a bit. I think still my favorite kind of go-to, though I don't ever really see it anymore because they've kind of shift gears to more promoting the Legacy IPA and Saranac. You don't see their pale ale as much around as you used to. You used to always see it in 6s and 12s and throw in all their variety packs, but now it's the Legacy IPA that's been,
Yeah, it's become their new go-to beer.
But I think, that, for instance, one of my favorite ones, because it's got a great balance between being a hoppy beer, but not overly hoppy, and you can still taste like the malt body to it. And I think with this, I would rank that up there. This is not an overly hot. It definitely has a noticeable hop characteristic to it, but it's not overly hoppy to where like you think you're drinking an IPA. As you said, it is in its own right. It is sessionable. It's very easy to drink, very crisp and refreshing. I like it a lot.
Yeah,
I would totally buy a 12-pack of this. I think it's good because a lot of especially now that you've been seeing like a lot of 12 and like 15 packs of like certain beers from these kind of these craft brewers. Usually they're like a session IPA.
yeah. That's like New Belgium has their 15 pack of the Everyday IPA, which is a session.
That's Founders.
Or yeah, Founders. I'm sorry, Founders. Yes.
Which they're PC pills, which we reviewed.
Yes.
Which we also thought was really good. That is quite hoppy too.
Yeah.
But I mean, New Belgium's is the easy go.
They have the easy go, yeah.
Which I have not tried
yet. Yeah.
I've
been looking for it too. I've been looking for it in stores. I can't find it anymore. I saw it the one time and I can't find it.
They have it in Tall Boys. You can get Stewart's.
Oh, do they?
You can buy like a 24-ounce Tall Boy at Stewart's.
Interesting.
So I will be giving it a go.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like a pale ale. I think it's to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Kind of more probably leaning towards like a wheat ale.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'll have to go and give it a try. But no, I like this a lot. This is hoppy yet crisp, refreshing beer. Very drinkable, and on like the hot, sweltering, humid days we've been having.
Yeah.
This is a good beer to have.
Comes in a can too. Comes in a 12-pack of cans. I've never seen it before.
Well, all I've ever seen of Lagunitas around here is like the suck.
The Lagunitas sucks.
Yeah.
We don't really get a lot of their beers around here. A few. I think I've seen the Czech Pilsner around too, but for the most part, we don't get anything. So when I saw it, I had to pick it up. Around here, it was $15.99 for a 12-pack, which is it's pretty
expensive. It's expensive, but
yeah. I mean, it's a little bit more expensive than like what our
it's the same as a Corona 12-pack.
Yeah, or what our Sam's normally go for is like $14.99 or
that's if it's on sale.
Yeah, if it's on sale. So it's not. I mean, it's right around average. It's not like it was like an exorbitant price like Ballast Point, because here Ballast Point is like a crazy, way more expensive beer. It's like $21.99 for a 12-pack, and I don't really. I mean, I like Ballast Point. It's good, but I don't understand the.
I wonder how much that is out in California.
Yeah, I wonder too, because I'm just it's a very strange thing, like how much more expensive it is compared to other things that we also get exported from California or stuff like that. So, you know what I mean? It's
like something you expect from like Stone. Like, here's our 4-pack of like arrogant bastard, $30.
Yeah, Stone is really expensive too for whatever reason. I don't know if it's set by the maker or if it's set by the distributor or what, but it's odd. But the Lagunitas.
But then again, at the same time, we don't get a lot of Stone either. It's a very slim picking of what you can get from them, and usually it's just like one of the variations of the Arrogant Bastard Ale.
Yep. But the Lagunitas 12th and Never Ale is, I guess it's out now. I'm assuming it's sort of seasonal. I think it's probably like a summer seasonal. You should definitely look for it. It's really good. I think that most people who enjoy pale ales are really going to like this, especially if you're not into pale ales that really go over the top of the hops character, because it does have a quite a bit of hops in the front, but I think that it's not as heavy as an IPA would be. It's very sessionable, very crisp and refreshing, and I think that that's a perfect fit.
This is just making me think about how like I don't drink pale ales that often.
Yeah,
anymore.
There's not that many.
Like I'm thinking about it, it's like I can't like remember last time I like Saranac's pale ale, a Sierra Nevada pale ale. Mm-hmm. Things I used to like drink, quite often. It's like I could just like
now it's just always IPA.
No, not even like just buying IPA. I just can't remember like the last time I was like, I'm gonna buy I'm gonna go for a 6-pack of Saranac Pale Ale or Sierra Nevada Pale. Like, it's weird. I don't even like look at them anymore. Like,
yeah,
because I know you can find Sierra Nevada Pale Ale like all over the fucking place.
Well, yeah, but you're also looking for something different too. So that may be part of it. But check it out. Lagunitas 12th of Never Ale. It should be in stores, I'm thinking. It's in 12-pack cans. Good beer. So, we're going to take another break to give our podcast friends a chance to promote their show. And we'll be back with a discussion and, I guess, a criticism, cultural criticism of Black Caesar. So stay tuned.
Welcome to Confession Radio, the show where people write in for advice. My name's Piers Ray.
My name is Eric Ivanovich.
My name is Bruce Wozniak.
My name is Lainey Zerkerman.
My name is Dr. Latrice Drain.
My name is Dr. John McGrail.
And my name is David Allen, creator and host of Confession Radio. Here at Confession Radio, we love to help other people. As you heard, some of the awesome elite team that we have that are willing to help you with your problems. Don't forget to visit the website, confessionradio.net. You can hear us on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And also, we are featured on iHeartRadio. So stay tuned, because here comes Confession Radio.
Confession Radio is for entertainment purposes only.
All right, on to Black Caesar. This is, I guess, probably it's an earlier film in the blaxploitation canon. 1973, pretty early, I would say. I don't think it's as early as like
Sweet.
No. Yeah, it's not. It's actually, I would say, it's probably around average for some of the more influential films. Like Coffee was also released in 1973. I think Foxy Brown was 1974.
71's when Shaft and Sweetback came.
Yeah, those are the early ones in the genre, but I think like this is probably more of like a, I don't know, I would say it's probably not, it's not early, but it's like
mid.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to say that like within 2 years the film was like mid blaxploitation genre, but that's how things work in the film industry. It's like there's a quick phase and then bam, it's over. What I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast is that it was directed by a white guy, Larry Cohen, who also wrote and directed quite a few other types of films, although he really did stick within the themes of like city life, and some of that, city issues. I think It's Alive and God Told Me To, they all really take place within the confines of like a cityscape. It's kind of, that was also kind of the thing within the 70s as well, of, like New York City area settings and things like that. It was a big thing, especially because of all the crime in New York City at the time.
Well, this is a good counterpoint to vigilante films.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Black Caesar is a good counterpoint to vigilante films, which are also kind of prospering at the time. Death Wish released in the same year, 1973, I believe. And it's also an interesting kind of take on The Godfather.
74.
Death Wish was 74, so it was a little bit after. But it's an interesting take on The Godfather. It's inspired by its predecessor, Little Caesar, which was a 1930s kind of noir gangster film. That was, you can kind of see the similarities in this film, although with a much more focused storyline about black people in positions of power and how corruption occurs in these city areas when people are working within the power struggle of mafia and criminal enterprises. In this film, Black Caesar calls the mafia the National Organization, or also known as the Syndicate. And although, basically it's a stand-in for the mafia. Really, it's the mafia by any other name. In this case, a lot of Italian guys eating a spaghetti and packing guns and Basically, generic Italian guy stuff. Is pretty much what I can say about the actual Italian people within the film. But Black Caesar, it tells a story of a kid who is kind of paid to do a lot of dirty work by white guys. And eventually he grows up and realizes that these white guys are running the city and he wants to kind of take over. And I think for the most part, Black Caesar, it gives its protagonist, who's also kind of an anti-hero in a sense, it gives him some, good intentions, right? I mean, I think that Tommy as a central figure, in the beginning, he does kind of have good intentions. Yeah. No, I think that's part of the point of Black Caesar too.
I think his friend has good intentions.
True.
That's helping him work with him. I think
that the idea is that Tommy, as a character, he's making this progression. At the beginning of the film, when we're in 1963, he's grown up, he's become this guy that wants to have this power. His intentions are really, he wants power, he wants to feel in control, and he wants to take that power back from people who, in his childhood, had the power. But he also...
White people.
But he also does have good intentions in that he wants to give back to the community, especially in Harlem. He wants to make safe spaces for black people. He wants to change the scope of the city so that it's a little bit more equal for black people. And I think that those are the intentions at the start. And as we move forward in Black Caesar, we see how that power corrupts and how...
But I would say that doesn't make him a hero. It definitely makes him an anti-hero.
No, right. No, that's what I agree. I said I think he's more of an anti-hero than anything else, in that we're towards the middle, and especially at the end of the film, we're kind of rooting for him to go down. I mean, there's no sense that
I don't know about that.
No, not in the... I don't say...
I don't... Well, I don't... See, I think that's going to be depending on who's viewing the film.
I don't mean go down in the sense that the white people should reign supreme and take him down.
Charles Bronson reclaims the city?
No, I don't mean that. I mean, I see, like, in this film, how, that could be the takeaway, is, like, white supremacists well, I hope those whiteys get...
I know. Yeah, I gotta preface this. You gotta be careful with how you unpack this.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, for the most part, who we're supposed to see as sympathetic characters is actually the people that Tommy used to work with, who helped him gain his power, and now he's kind of stepping over. Like Helen, his girlfriend, who we're sympathetic to her, because for the most part we see how much she has liked Tommy in the past and how he's changed over time to become a person that's really not likable and overly
I would say he's
aggressive.
I would say she doesn't even really like him to begin with.
Yeah, I think it's more forced on her. And I think that's part of the context of the film, is that the film really moves through time so quickly that there's not a lot of chances for it to...
Well, we'll talk about that when we get to
give context.
to flaws, but his relationship with his girlfriend, Helen, is a perfect mirror of the relationships that he has had with society.
Mm-hmm.
About, power.
You've always got to be the one that has it.
From the prologue of the film sets up as him being a young kid living in the ghetto, and how he's basically doing these illegal things for this crooked cop because the cop's got a thumb on him. Mm-hmm. It's not that he's making money, because he's not, because the cop beats the living hell out of him for thinking that he took his money. Whether you don't know if he took the money or not. It's implied that he did. But we as an audience, you don't know that. But even if he did take the money, he's a kid living in the hood. You could understand if he took $50 from an envelope of, like, say, $1,000 that was given to this cop because he lives in a poor, rough neighborhood with a single mother, not another father, father figure, and he's
doing what he's got to do.
Yeah, he's a shoe shine, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
So he's not living a, great life. He's got to do what he's got to do to get by. And then the whole preface of that, what happened is, yeah, him doing that to get a guy killed is a shitty thing, but he's still a kid, and not only that, afterwards, for the potential of him taking the money, again, whether he did or didn't, it's not really important. It's the fact that how this cop treats him is what's important. That's the whole crux of it. He's overtly racist to him. He calls him the N-word several times and belittles and bemoans him for being black and for being...
Yeah. I mean, really, the reason we get... he makes it clear that the reason that he doesn't like this kid is because he's black. I mean,
but not only that, but it's not only that, though. It's the fact that because he's not only white, he's a white cop.
Yeah.
He has unwieldy power over him, and people like him in this situation. So, and he can, if he wants to beat the living hell out of him for shits and giggles, he can. Nothing you can do about it. And if if the kid tries to screw him over, he could do something that could put him in jail, or So
there's really no leverage that Tommy as a kid has.
So, and from experiences like that as a kid, when you see after he gets the shit kicked out of him by this cop, and his name is McKinney.
Yeah.
After he gets the shit kicked out of him, and he's in the hospital, and he's talking to his friend Joe. He's saying how that's what he wants. He wants that power. Someday he's going to make things different. So again, it's like I said. There's several things to unpack. It's about the race relation. It's about who has the power and who doesn't. What manhood is an important part of it. What makes him, not just a man, but a black man, and how you deal with that. So it's all the things from that. Now, going back to what you're talking about, his relationship with Helen, it's not I wouldn't even say that she liked him or loved him, really, because from the start, he shows up to the place she works. It's not really, they don't really say that they been together or anything. He's just kind of hitting on her, but he's there to kill people to get information, something over on McKinney. And he's threatening her to, make some noise so nobody else hears the gunfire. And so he can get away with it. And from that, he asserts his power and, his authority over her in essentially a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's implied, though, that they were in their relationship previously. In that it wasn't all just at that time.
Well, no, because later in the film, she says when...
he was using her.
Well, not that he was using her the first time they met was that night.
Yeah, but I think that there was... The implication when she says that he was using her implies that there was some sort of attraction between them at first, before, and not that it really matters in this case, but I just think that in this film itself, it's important that we know how much that Tommy has changed from where he began to where it ends. I think that's the main point, and really when we're talking about gangster films, especially in things like films that are specifically about a person rather than a group, that change from beginning where, there's you're first trying to gain the power to the end when you have it and you're trying to keep it is really important, because then you see just how much that power is corrupted. And I think that's the case with Black Caesar. I think it does a pretty good job of showing how much Tommy has changed from that beginning where he was a kid and he's kind of just doing what he had to do, to getting the power, taking it for himself, fighting back against white people in power like the mafia, like cops, like McKinney, and then what he has to do to keep it. And then what he has to do kind of changes him for the worse as we go through the film. And when I said previously that we're rooting against him, I'm not saying that we're rooting against him so that, the mafia or McKinney or the white cops in general win and they kill him or they eliminate him from power. I'm saying that we want to see him not die, but lose some of that power because of the things that he's done in the process, and that he's sort of that anti-hero where we don't really condone his actions, but we understand the context in which they're coming from. And I think that's important when we see the end of the film, where it ends up. So,
yeah, no, I
just wanted to explain those comments, and that, you know, we're not rooting for him to like die or anything like that. That's not the case in this film.
It's more just the whole idea that no matter what race and what people, the seduction and corruption of power.
There's always going to be that corruption, and in that case, when you're at the top, there's always going to be people on the bottom gunning for you.
Yeah,
and there's never really in this. I mean, even in here, there's never an equality to that. There's never like an understanding. There's always that chase for power that continually runs throughout Black Caesar, which is not only like a interesting political spectrum, but also just a cultural thematic idea as well that runs throughout Black Caesar that works very well as a blaxploitation film. Now, with that said, I do think that Black Caesar has some flaws to it in terms of we talked about it a little bit, but how much it moves through time and so quickly. It does seem like a lot of the pacing gets chopped up because of the way it has to shift through time. And at one point, we're moving 2 years in advance.
And nothing's done to...
Yeah, nothing really happens to give us the
indication.
Yeah.
The only way that we know we got from one point to the end, because at the prologue it says, like, you know, August 1953, and then after, you know, the prologue, you get October 1963, and then at the end of the film, it just ends with, like, September 1973, and it's like, what?
Yeah. We moved 9 years through time.
You don't feel it.
Yeah.
And not only that, I know it's a limitation. This is a tiny gripe because it's a limitation of the film, of its time and the budget that it's had. But it's like, for the most part, if like the most of this like criminal organization run by him is supposed to be set in like the 60s, it's not very period accurate. In fact, it's like we're in the heyday of the, you know, early 70s.
Yeah.
Same thing like the 50s part, like right in the beginning. It's like, nope, this looks like the 70s, not the 50s.
Yeah.
And that's a small gripe, but I think that's if they had more stuck to actual like periods.
It would have been a little bit more clear. Like
it'd be more clear, and you wouldn't have to like be like, wait, we've advanced 2 years. I don't, you know, I can't tell. But I understand why they didn't, because this is made on a $2 million budget. And it's not, you know. I think if they did it today, you know, obviously,
I think you have to just
more attention would be given to such things. But I don't think they, you know. They didn't give any thought to it. They didn't bother because like it wasn't a concern. You know?
Yeah, I think the bigger question just is that, like, why was the timeline such an important part of it? Like, why even go to bother with the fact of like, okay, now we're 3 years from where he started. Now we're, you know, into Christmas time. Now we're 6 years and 9 years. I just don't understand like why the specific time frame of it was so important to Black Caesar, because it seems like it kind of muddles the plot.
I think it's supposed to, because you get more. It's by extending the timeline and the time period, it gives you a greater idea of like how long he was able to get
to hold on to power,
how long he was in power, and then like how the relationships over that time period change.
Yeah,
but I think the hindrance in the film. The detriment to that is that because the film doesn't really explicitly say that, you don't get that effect. So you're not really feeling the effect of like his change in relationship with Rufus. You're not feeling the change in relationship with Helen or the change in relationship with Joe. You don't get to feel that at all because it's not. See, the main problem with this film is the fact that this is a film that could easily is just over like 85 minutes.
This film,
yeah,
is 95 minutes.
This is a film that could benefit from being 2 hours.
Yeah, it does need a little bit of an expansion
because it's so breakneck in its pace.
Yeah,
and how it just moves along. Because the framework and the ideas of the story are great and really good. It's a time it's time-honored idea, like with like Scarface, about power but also you're adding these very important like black issues and black topics and about the Black Power movement and about race relations and how the black community feels and black culture, and you're adding all these subtexts to it, and it makes for a great idea and a great framework. But the fact that the pace is so breakneck and just go, and things are just going, you don't really get to settle in really what's going on, and a lot of the story ends up being told through really offhand exposition.
Yeah.
Again, like the whole... how did we know, like, in one part that it's been 2 years? It's really offhandedly mentioned, real quick.
That it's,
Helen says, I haven't seen Tommy in 2 years.
And she has a baby.
Yeah, and it's just like...
Yeah.
I
will say that in some films, that easy transition, is praiseworthy. Because you don't always need a screen cap that says... Okay, now we're in 1969.
No, I'm not saying.
You know what I mean?
No, I'm not saying like have like a screen cap for every time, like
right,
like July 3rd, 1970.
Yeah.
I'm not saying do that, but I'm saying if the film had more time, you could easily like elaborate more on like relationships and the growth and the dispersion, but. I understand why they didn't, because again, it's a film of the period.
Yeah,
this is what the films of the period are like.
Can you imagine a 2-hour blaxploitation film such as this? I don't really see it.
Jackie Brown?
No, I'm saying that I think that at this time with this low budget, 95 minutes is pretty much what they got to work with. They've got to get it in that.
No, and that's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not full. I mean. Like I said, if they were to do it today, I think that would be a modern benefit if they were to remake it. But it's a problem with the film. But I totally understand the flip side. I understand why it was.
You can forgive.
I can forgive it. In the case, you're really gonna have to pay attention.
Oh yeah.
When you're watching this film to like the dialogue, because again, a lot of key points are quickly exposited onto you.
The whole aspect of the ledger, if you miss that in the beginning part of the film, that's the whole glue that holds Black Caesar together. So if you miss that part of the explanation, you're gonna be lost when they're talking about ledgers and years later ledgers and the final scene. There's a ledger book in it. It's like you gotta really make sure that you catch that part of it. I'm not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing to really expect that from your audience, that like, oh, they've been paying attention all along. But at the same time, I think that Black Caesar could have done a better job of maybe just giving more context to it. I think what's necessary is a longer film.
Yeah.
Hour and 45. We don't normally say that.
No,
we don't
you don't.
Say, fucking cut this thing down. Superhero films, cut it down. 150, that's good. But in this case, you do need a longer film, and even a shot of a movie theater with the Godfather blazoned on the marquee. You can tell where the inspiration comes from. The mob aspect of it, Godfather-esque, and also influenced by noir films.
I'll say, well, to a point. I won't say it's like hand in hand with The Godfather.
No. I'm not. I'm saying like, yeah, obviously was an inspiration, helped to build the world of this film. But
you definitely want to. If there's a film you want to be ripping off, you want to be ripping off
exactly
the biggest film at the time that won, Best Picture.
The Godfather
that's what you
would
want to be.
The one that you want. Yeah. Well, even if you don't know exactly what's going on at all times, you do have James Brown's soundtrack to help you follow along. Because the soundtrack is really almost like James Brown sat down, they put the scene on in front of him, and they said, James, you write a song about that. So he did. Quite literally writing a song about specific things happening within the film. There's a whole scene where, really out of context, Tommy is in a cemetery, standing over a grave. This is out of nowhere. Like, where's the grave coming from? No, we don't know that anyone died. There's no mention of it at first. And James Brown nicely comes in with the excellent lyric, "Mama's dead." And okay, all right, Tommy's mom died. We've seen her like one time previously.
In one scene where Tommy buys his lawyer and his wife's apartment and everything in it,
including the maid and
the clothes and the furniture, buys it from them, and the maid just so happens to be his mom, and he bought it for her. And his mom explains she won't work for him. She's embarrassed. That brings up like a whole, other, racial subtextual thing of how, her generation dealt with, how they dealt with their situations, because, she's
systemic racism.
Yeah, and how she just views herself as a maid, and she's, like she's like, I did this for you. I bought this for you to live here, and so you don't have to work anymore or do anything like that. And she's like, I can't live here. They'll hang me.
Yeah, there's even the offering of white people as maids, to take care of her. And I think that's an interesting criticism of how she feels too, because when you live in systemic racism for that long, you start to feel like that's just the way it is. That's for her. She is just a maid. That's the way it is, and she's been ingrained to feel like that. And it's kind of interesting how that takes place, and how we have Tommy, who's the one who can subvert that.
Well, and that brings up the whole, the whole idea of blackness and black culture and the Black Power movement, because you have a lot of, if you go back to like the 30s, 40s, and 50s, you have like a lot of things being like marketed towards black people, like this is how you got to have your hair, like in this straight hair, and you got to look like this, and we have things that can make your skin look lighter, because it was
wigs and
stuff like that, and you have that whole generations of things, that kind of like you want to be what you want to look what you want to try to fit in with white culture. And the 60s when you had with Malcolm X, and then eventually the rise of the Black Power movement and the Black Panther Party, it's like, wait, no, we should be able to embrace our our culture and our African roots, our curly hair and things like that. Why does John over there get to be like, oh, I'm German, and like look at the things that Germans, and like, oh, or if you're like this Tony's, he got all these Italian things that he can, why can't we do the same? And that's that's a prevalent part of this film, and it's a prevalent part in blaxploitation too, is the whole embracing that culture and embracing being different, and having a value of that. Which it's hard to believe and think about, but it's radical at the time.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, it's still kind of radical today, because you got people saying, well, if that kid only wasn't wearing a damn hoodie, he would have gotten shot.
That's right.
And that's an asinine thing to say. Imagine if someone's like around here, like, well, if he wasn't only wearing that cowboy hat,
yeah,
he wouldn't have gotten shot.
I know.
Yeah, stupid.
I think that Black Caesar does a lot of things really well.
And the soundtrack is one, though we do make fun of. James Brown is always a delight.
Yeah, it's a good soundtrack. I think that it's probably one of the better soundtracks for blaxploitation films, simply because it's catchy. It's got great tunes to it. As you heard in the beginning of our podcast episode, there's a really catchy theme song to it called "The Boss," and
Down and Out in New York.
Down and Out in New York is another great one. They're really good, funky tunes, and I think that I think this really kind of...
It's good until the end, because the end they just kind of just throw...
Yeah.
Everything they had at the end and just, Yeah. Because for some reason they decide to make it silent, and they're like, oh, there's some songs we still didn't use. Shit, we gotta,
Yeah, throw them in there.
And throw them in there and just
make sure that they relate to the plot quite a bit. Yeah. I think there's a lot of unintentional humor to Black Caesar as well. Most notably, I think there's a lot of explicit racism in it, to the point where it's almost humorous in the way that some of the white characters are so stereotypically racist. It's almost like some of them are trying to outdo each other on the racist scale.
Yeah, but I think it's that's the thing I think with like today though. Like in our highfalutin cultured society of 2017, it might seem outlandish, though.
But
though it really shouldn't.
No.
At the same token, I mean, it's you can talk to several African Americans and other, not just African Americans, Muslims and
Asians
and stuff.
Yeah.
And you hear, all you gotta do is go on social media.
No, I know that it's...
You'll see like a story of how here's a tale of how some Syrian woman on a subway and whatever given city was accosted on film today, and the person just didn't care. Like how this woman at a supermarket told a Latino to go back to I mean. You would like to think that that's comically over the top and,
I would.
And ridiculous.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, even still today, it's not.
You have
and in the context of this film, it sure as shit is not. Again, this is what I tell people when you see people say, like certain people we know, well, more you than I, but about like, things like this didn't happen until Obama came into office, or there wasn't a problem,
Yeah.
This is a new thing of like the pot getting stirred, and it's like I think people forget it's like it has only been 50 years since the Civil Rights Movement.
Yeah.
50 fucking years. We're not even we're barely over a half century since, things were really starting to move towards the direction of equality for black people in this country.
Yeah.
Though cultural differences and acceptances have changed quite rapidly, and even more so today. Like, again, if you think about it, even like 5 years ago, gay rights weren't, viewed nearly as they are today. It's, been a pretty quick shift on that. But again, I think as technology evolves and, as the way technology has increased, like, constantly tenfold over and over again, I think that's the same that you're seeing with, like, cultural movements and acceptances today. But so going back to then, like, it's going to be a slower process. So, like, again, this film's only not even a decade after Martin Luther King's "I Have Like a Dream" speech.
Yeah.
So again, it's not like overnight after like the Civil Rights Act was passed and those damn racists packed up their bags and goes, damn it,
Yeah. Oh, we were wrong.
We fuckers got us again,
Yeah. No, it is.
We carpetbaggers got us again. All right, boys, pack up pack up the burning crosses.
It is kind of...
We've lost.
It's hard to kind of gauge exactly, like, in this period. Like you said, not even 10 years after civil rights movements and things like that, like, what kind of impact this would have had at the time. Because now it just seems like, oh, you know, that was a cool little period for black people in film. But then it was a huge, like, experimental and also
culturally relevant and impactful and powerful.
Powerful time. Not even that, but also a very, I would assume, scary time in terms of, like, being a black guy starring in these films, especially like Fred Williamson, imagining, like, their first films doing a blaxploitation film. I would assume it would be pretty scary.
But at the same time, I think it's probably saw it also as empowering. And,
sure.
And embraced it. And,
sure.
You know.
Yeah. I agree. It was like probably a little bit of both.
And it probably scared the hell out of, white people too.
What yeah.
I know, trust,
they're in our movies now.
I know, there's a reason why, white, if you, like, when people think back to, like, like with things like today, like the black, the whole, why am I drawing a blank? I'm having, like, a really serious mental fart.
I'm not sure what you're getting at.
Hands up, don't shoot.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
I apologize. I don't know why I was having such a, like, a brain fart, like, piecing that up, in my head. But yeah, so, like, with, like, the Black Lives Matter movement and stuff, you got a lot of, people being like, particularly white people being like, all lives matter. No shit, Sherlock.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of, they're saying, hey, we're kind of getting shafted here.
We're focusing on this right now.
Our lives matter too. It's not, but you're like, so like, they're like missing the point. And you also got people, saying too, like, oh, well, Martin Luther King would have, if you only did it like Martin Luther King. And it's like, do you really? I'm sure if Martin Luther King came to, like, your diner or whatever and sat down and interrupted your breakfast with a you'd be pissed off. And and be saying, like, get the cops down here and drag their ass. I'm not dealing with this shit.
Sure.
And then you'd be just as equally pissed off and even more afraid when Malcolm X rolls into town and he's like, by any means necessary, we're going to get what we, our rights. And if that means being an armed militia, then so be it. You would be scared, people would be, So I just find, like, the kind of whole, it's like, just think about, like, the whole context and the whole, and again, like I said, it's, our grandparents lived through this.
Yeah. It's not even uncles.
Yeah.
Uncles lived through it.
And so it's not like, that's why I say, it's like, this is not like some far off, like, thing.
Yeah.
And I urge people to kind of,
Yeah, you kind of have to view it in a historical context, and kind of, at that point when you're thinking about it, it's a lot more inspirational. It's a lot easier to kind of dive into the whole concept and context of the film and understand the empowerment within it. I think it's really important especially when you're watching something like Black Caesar, which probably you could easily just take for face value and kind of laugh at the more over-the-top things that are included in it, like the squib bullets and ridiculous action sequences. And, there's a lot of things here that are unintentionally funny that...
It's literally, with the squibs they use, it's almost like they literally... You're right. Well, that's like, to me, like, was screaming Godfather. It's like they literally saw Sonny getting shot at the toll booth.
Yeah.
I'm like, we can do more than that. We can. That's the one thing we're gonna invest in. We're gonna invest in a shit ton of squibs. And it's actually pretty revolutionary for the time too, because you're seeing people getting shot in the head and
it's a pretty violent film
and like bullet hole left from getting shot in the head. So
yeah. I mean, it's a pretty explicit film, all things considered. There's a lot of violent scenes in it that, there's like shoot 'em up scenes, something, in this case, we've got the black gang with their Tommy guns, kicking down doors and busting into a pool party in a California mobster's resort.
It just makes me think when I saw the whole pool party thing when Gus Fring goes and takes out his former boss. In Breaking Bad, except with he does it more subtly with poison.
And it
just makes me think of. Just imagine Gus Fring showing up to that pool party and just instead of coming out with poison, he kicks down the door and he's like, got an AK. And just...
I love the over the top nature of the things that happen in Black Caesar. Like at one point during that pool party scene, we're supposed to kind of think these black guys are storming the compound secretly, silently storming through, and then all of a sudden a black guy in a white suit pops up on a rooftop and starts shooting people. It's like, yeah, that was stealthy. That was, you were hidden very well in that white suit.
He was always dressed really, fly. In this he always had the
But
nice,
I love
vibrant...
how over the top some of those things are.
I love the guy who jumped off the shrubbery and clotheslined a guy,
Yeah. At least some of those moments
Another guy,
feel like accidents.
And no, they totally are, because there's one scene where you see 5 guys jump off from the bush and onto the ground, 4 of them land on their feet, and the one guy trips and falls into the bush and lands face flat on the ground.
I feel like Larry Cohen.
The one guy probably got I gotta redo that. I found the bush. No, we only have enough film for this one tip.
Larry Cohen is like, that's it. No, we're taking that one. You're gonna look like the asshole that fell while everybody else landed properly. But there's a lot of scenes like that. I think that in watching now, the action scenes seem a little cheesy.
But it's a great cheesy. Though.
It's a great cheesy, and I think that it adds to the film's atmosphere, the aura of it, and. While a lot of it is serious and a lot of it does have a lot of plot and cultural criticisms, I think that that little bit of cheesiness does help to kind of disperse some of the overly serious nature of how you might view Black Caesar. It's good comic relief. I think it works really well, and I would say that some of the more serious scenes do have funnier undertones to them. I don't know if it's intentional or not. I tend to think that Larry Cohen was more so going for a fully serious direction, and some of those scenes now, as contemporary audiences, we find funny. But I think
I agree. I don't think they're sitting there.
Yeah,
laughing their ass off.
I mean, either way, I think it works though. I don't think it's
it's not just this. There's most films that you could think of that not just blaxploitation, but
not just
of several genres that have action scenes like that follow them. Again, somebody getting shot and they're on a ledge and they're just tumble. All this film was missing, and for stuff like that was a Wilhelm scream.
There's even a car explosion, which is the norm for 70s action films. So
Bronson was nearby.
Yeah. So there is a low-rent Bronson in this.
Oh, God.
Guy that looks just like Charles Bronson. I think that, for the most part, this is a really fun and intriguing film. And I think a lot of audiences now should really check it out. I think it's up there with some of the other better blaxploitation films in terms of the ones that you need to see in the genre.
No, I agree. It's up there for me.
And it has a sequel too, which we have not seen.
I have not seen it, no.
It's called Hell Up in Harlem, and it was released just months later, about 9 months after Black Caesar released.
That's something I kind of miss. I mean, I didn't live through it, so I can't really fully appreciate and miss. But I kind of miss that with film, and not only film, but music. Hey, you can guarantee every year 4 seasons and 3 Beach Boy albums.
Yeah, there's a new one coming out.
And each artist has 2 to 3 albums each year. Just imagine that today.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
a Lady Gaga was pumping out 2 albums a year.
The horror genre tends to do that a little bit, though. Paranormal Activity. For a little while, you could guarantee, okay, there's a new one coming out next year.
I know. That's yearly. I'm saying extreme
within the year.
Yeah, because if you think you think about it,
Yeah,
some
the only time
some
really
of the most well-received albums of all time, from like the Beatles and Dylan and the Beach Boys, came out in the same like not talking about like the albums that they all did, but like they made an album and then later in the year made another album, and it was considered, you know, just thinking about it just like blows my mind. Like, so you mean to tell me in the same year Dylan did another side of Bob Dylan and bringing it all back home? I can't imagine somebody today like having like the forethought to like, I gotta put that much kind of creative output like out in a unless you're Dean Koontz and
right. It's actually more prevalent in the book industry of like make sure you get 2 books out a year.
Well, no, I think somebody realized that like if you have a hit album, you can milk that until you know
tour on it for 4 years before you put out a
I think record execs. But I mean, granted, if you think more like the 50s and 60s, like you'd get an artist and then you push them until people didn't care, and then you just get rid of them and get another one. So I mean, it's both methods of production have their values and downsides. Like
it sounds like that was the case with Black Caesar, in that it did really well,
and it had the thought behind it, and then because like hey, you know, this did really well. We want a sequel before, you know, these people are going to want more money.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, we'll think of something. So.
And that was good forethought, too, because this was kind of like the start of Fred Williamson's career in blaxploitation, because he really skyrocketed. He like started doing film after film after film, kind of in the same vein as Pam Grier. After she really hit stardom with Coffee, it was like film after film after film, like let's get Pam Grier in a film. So I think like that was a good. I mean, they were right on in that. Hey, lock Fred Williamson. Yeah, they were like lock Fred Williamson down, get him in for at least Hell Up in Harlem, and you know make sure that we can still get him for the same price. It's a good idea, I guess. So we haven't seen Hell Up in Harlem. It might be something that we check out in a later episode and cover that, because I'm interested to see what happens with Tommy when we go from here.
Because at the end of the film, it's pretty clearly hinted at he's dead.
Well, it's either hinted at that he's dead or just like very. I mean, he's mortally wounded for like an entire day before the last scene takes place.
Yeah, no, he has a 38 slug in him, and he's right in his stomach and liver, and he's been walking around, you know, beating the shit out of people for a day, and then he gets the shit beat out of him.
Yeah, even if the kids that beat him up at the end of the film didn't actually kill him, the thought is that who's gonna get there to save him, because he's already been bleeding out all day and night with his 38 slug in him. So yeah, I'm interested to see how Hell Up in Harlem comes back with him, because he is the main character again in that film. How does Tommy survive that crazy night and day that he had?
Just imagine if they did like a Shaft versus Tommy film or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, or even just like getting them paired up, like Coffee and, you know, Tommy, or it's interesting that like how they
Cleopatra Jones.
Yeah, it would have been fun. I think it would have been fun to have like sort of a crossover. It's like maybe that's like an idea for comics. You know what I mean? Because comics are always really trying to revitalize those old ideas. Like I think even there's like a new Shaft comic and stuff like that. So that would be something like get Shaft and Coffee together. You know, be a cool crossover. All right, so out of 10, what's the gun that he uses?
A Mauser C96.
Yeah, out of 10 Mauser C96s, which we didn't even really mention, but that's pretty much an unwieldy pistol for someone in Tommy's shoes.
Well, just because it uses a stripper clip.
Seems annoying.
Yeah, there's kind of a reason why box magazines won the day over stripper clips.
Yeah,
especially for pistols.
We never actually see him load it either.
No.
So that kind of explains why he would use it, because
which I always found funny in Red Dead, because that's the semi-automatic pistol, which is one of the better guns. And like when you go to load it, he's like, you just really quickly see John Marston go, putting in like one at a time, like stupidly quick, kind of like how with some of like the bolt action rifle, like the trap, like the trapdoor Springfield that he used, like. Yeah. But no, I thought it was fun. I thought it was funny more too because I was just thinking of like things like that made me think of like Lupin, just like Lupin uses his Walther P38, Jigen uses his Smith & Wesson, double action combat magnum, and Fujiko and the pilot. Well, at least in the original pilot film, one of the scenes she's using like a Mauser C96, and I can understand why, because it looks cool. It looks cool.
It looks different than just like some regular old gun.
Yeah, it's got a nice aesthetic to it, and that, and like with just like how it kind of looked and held it and used it, and then like with like the music, it just made me think of like, this is making me think of like Green Jacket Lupin. It's great, like, cause like when he's like, he's the boss man,
yeah,
and stuff like that. It's making me think of like Lupin.
Even though
he's a nice man, but he gets angry sometimes. Yeah. So that was cool. But that was cool.
So out of 10 Mauser C96s, what would you give Black Caesar?
I'd give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
I agree.
I think despite the fact that it's set at a breakneck pace, it's mainly really the only like huge flaw is like the fact that the film doesn't have any time to breathe story-wise, and the framework and concept of the film gets totally just smashed in because of how fast it moves. Other than that, I think it's a really enjoyable film. I think the score by James Brown's great. It's, definitely fits the mood and the tone of the film, and overall, it's just a great listen to. I think Fred Williamson is very good in this. I think he's very enjoyable. He plays a nasty son of a bitch pretty well, but also, he does have charisma to him that does make you, he is likable. I do think the supporting cast, so we didn't really talk too much about, but it's mainly because it's not really well-known cast. But, I mean, that's, fair for the day.
Yeah.
In films like this, they're usually...
we got, D'Urville Martin, who is pretty much hand-in-hand with Fred Williamson in most blaxploitation films. He's pretty good as Reverend Rufus. He doesn't
have a bit...
it's not a big part. And I would argue that almost everybody in this film doesn't have a very big part in comparison to Fred Williamson.
No.
I mean, McKinney has probably the second biggest part.
And I did think Art Lund as
played as Art Lund.
He was. I do think him as the Captain McKinney. He was, very good. He was a totally nasty son of a bitch.
Believable. Yeah.
I
don't know if you. I mean, I think that's great. I don't know if you want to be remembered as I can totally believe that white guy's a fucking asshole racist. You know what I mean? He just looks like one. He could also play a Nazi sympathizer.
But again, that's fair for the time. Just think of all not just blaxploitation films and but the vigilante and the cop films and stuff think of French Connection with Gene Hackman as Popeye Doyle. He's a cop who's an alcoholic bastard, but he talks about how he hates Latinos and blacks, but he's still that hardworking cop.
Yeah. That's par for the course.
It's one of Hackman's better and well-known roles. It's that's what he is in the film. He's a mean, nasty, surly son of a bitch who fucking is a racist.
Yeah.
Same thing, Archie Bunker.
Yeah.
Wife
beater.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know.
I mean, no, you're right. I wouldn't, you wouldn't want to be typecast into that.
It's Art Lund, the guy who can play racist people really
But at the same time, kind of going off the whole Hollywood shuffle thing, do you really want to be, the guys going to black acting school who's what did you do? I played a mugger 3 times, a kidnapper twice, a rapist once. Oh, very good. Great roles. But, I think the acting, though, is pretty enjoyable. Though, some of some of the actors in it are pretty damn wooden and not good. But again, that's kind of par for the course, and I for films like this, that doesn't bother me. I think it gives like a little bit of an endearing charm to this, like with some of the side characters who are like his lawyer, who's just like who's like, you know, like literally like a piece of pine just sitting in an office.
I think you're talking about Myrna Hansen, who plays the lawyer's wife, who it looks pretty much like smacked out for most of the film.
2 snorts and 3 gin and tonics in. And...
She does. She really does. And a lot of her deliveries are as wooden and hard as the bed that she says is in her apartment building. So pretty, you know, I think that's who you're... Yeah, but I agree. Like some of the people that just make little cameo appearances could do, you know, they're just there. Yeah. They're pretty much extras at that point.
And I do think the overarching themes and ideas in this film are put out there well enough. They're not, and I would say too, they're not overbearing. Like what I extrapolated from this film is a lot, and I think you have to be somebody who's actually conscious and thinking about it to get that. And I think that also comes with like the time that the film was released, because you could be more kind of not heavy-handed with those types of themes, and the viewing audience isn't going to be able to get it. I think today, with how some people have been kind of laissez-faire towards these types of topics and issues, might just totally ignore it or not read that deep into it because they just don't care and don't want to really think about it. So I'm not blaming the film for that, because I was able to get it. But at the same time, I could also see how it's not. Yeah. But at the same time, you don't want it to be heavy-handed and at the end, like, like a little fairy comes down from the sky and like, here's the moral of this story. You know?
Right, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think I would give it an 8 as well. I think it's a pretty strong blaxploitation film. Certainly more enjoyable than some of the other more generic blaxploitation films, because sometimes they tend to run, even at only 90 minutes, they tend to feel a little bit long, like their storyline just doesn't have enough plot to work with. That's not the case with Black Caesar, as we mentioned before. It actually could stand to be a little bit longer. But I think that everybody does a really good job within the film. Fred Williamson particularly. I think he's even better in this film than what I've seen him in other films like Hammer. And it definitely has a better cultural criticism than some of the other films that I've seen him in. I think that the themes are really strong. I would disagree a little bit and say that I think that while the themes themselves do require some thinking and actual wokeness,
engagement from the audience,
I think that some of the explicit racism is a little over the top, in that, it's kind of hitting the viewer over the head with it. Well, I think that it's probably in the 70s it may have been a little bit more common than we even expect today. It reads now as though it's maybe a little bit over the top, but I could be wrong. I mean, it could be exactly the way that it was, and just very openly people were like, well, I don't like the black people. But to me, it feels a little over the top. Other than that, though, I think it's a really fun film, besides, as we said, the sort of pacing issues with some of the time jumps, and a couple of unintentional funny sequences. But other than that,
the goofily sped up jumping out of the taxi.
Oh yeah, yes, the goofy, yeah. And this is a film you can absolutely see, because that was a thing that they would use a lot, is to do like a very, very slow car ride in a stunt sequence and then speed it up in post. And that's
the worst offender I think I've ever seen in film of something like doing that is the Bond film Thunderball at the end, where they're on, like, there's a Bond's fighting Largo on this ship, and they have actual aerial shots of a ship out at sea, and the ship sped up, like, and then they go on to the fight on the ship, and it's obviously like a sound stage of a ship, and then a green screen, and it's hilarious because all they're like Largo and Bond are fighting, the henchmen are fighting. There's they're on this boat, and then a green backdrop, and then the boat steering wheel is like thrusting all around in like different directions.
Yeah.
And then the green screen on the boat is this like boat going like 70 knots. Like something like supersonic speed. And, like it's just like shifting around the water, and it looks so bad and so awful. It's like, who thought that was a good idea? It's like even in the 60s you would be looking at like what the fuck, this is awful. What did they do?
That's pretty funny.
I'll have to show it to you.
Yeah, we'll have to watch.
Because that is absolutely dreadful.
Yeah, but I think like that part of it reminds me of Fred Flintstone, like using it, in the car with his feet,
like,
where it's like,
or like when like Shaggy and Scooby like running in there, like
running in place or something like that. Yeah. But other than that, I really like Black Caesar. I think a lot of people should check it out, especially now. It's very, it's kind of scary how accurate and realistic it still is for the time.
And I said that about Death Wish too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and how much it resonates still, and kind of gives you a little cringe.
Well, because no one was paying attention during history class. That's why your history teachers drink.
That's right. All right.
That's why I drink.
Anything else you want to add about Black Caesar before we close this episode?
No, that's about it.
I think that's all I got too.
I think the big curiosity now is what next?
What next? I've been thinking. I think we're gonna go back to horror for a little bit. There's two options that I really have been toying with. We could do a giallo film, The Man with Icy Eyes. It's basically about
Man with Icy Eyes.
A man with icy eyes who
sleeps
commits
12 years old.
He commits a murder. Stripper sees the murder, and a reporter starts to like track down the murderer. So there's that one. Or we could go way back in time and do a classic horror film like House on Haunted Hill.
For what? Because of the Universal thing? Like
no,
we got to get the mummy out of him.
No. Not because of that, but just because.
You sure you didn't want to do the remake of House on Haunted Hill, the one that we grew up to know and love?
Well, no,
or like the remake of the Haunting.
I'm just thinking. We generally don't go that far back. We haven't done any sort of classic.
No, we haven't.
Films on the podcast, so it's it's something that we are missing. So
I don't know. We'll see.
All right, maybe we'll put it up to a vote. Maybe I'll put it on Twitter. See what happens. See what people pick. What's the next film that you want to see us cover?
Toy Story 3.
Open ballot write-in. Toy Story 3, please.
Yeah.
You'll cry at the end. I've still never seen it.
Neither have I.
I've seen 1 and 2.
So have I. I haven't seen 3.
I'm not ready to let the series go.
The Toy Story 4 is coming out, though.
I know. I think,
Pixar's just giving up on original ideas.
Cars 4. Planes 3.
That's what they're doing. They've given up.
WALL-E 2.
They're not even trying anymore.
Yeah.
They don't care. They're making them. They know they got people in their pocket for life now. They just can, they can do whatever the fuck they want. Must be nice,
So, so does, what is it, DreamWorks? They've got like a new Despicable Me coming out.
I've only seen the first one.
I've seen the first one. Yeah.
And I don't remember it.
I've never seen any other Minions since, but people have overused the Minions meme on Facebook, so
it's usually
I'm done with that.
50-year-old.
Yeah. I'm a Minion. All right. So I'm gonna put that selection up on Twitter. We're at Blood and Black Rum. You can vote on that, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what we cover next week for the podcast. It's either House on Haunted Hill or The Man with Icy Eyes. We also have a Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We have a Facebook group as well, which I've been trying to kind of generate some interest in that Facebook group because Facebook pages, it doesn't get shared a whole lot, and Facebook reach sucks. But the group itself is a lot easier to follow, and you can post discussions on there too, so anybody can post on it. So
you should really find Mark Zuckerberg and
give him a piece of my mind. I will. But so join the Facebook group as well. If you search for us on Facebook, you'll find the group. Join that. You can have discussions, post things in there. We can actually talk. We do have an email as well, bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com. Send us your movie recommendations. Send us anything you like or don't like about the show, and we'll definitely respond to it and also probably bring it up on the show. We also have a Patreon page. It's patreon.com/bloodandblackrumpodcast. You can donate to us. We've got a few different levels for donations. You can get yourself a little mug if you join us on there. At a certain level, you can get a t-shirt, or you can just be mentioned on the show, whatever you feel like. So check that out, and whatever you can donate helps the podcast out. We're going to throw it right back to that. We're going to get Martin a fun little swivel mic and stuff like that. So it goes right back to the show. And also, you can always catch us on the regular podcast apps like iTunes, Stitcher. We're up on Podbean and a lot of other really smaller apps that you can use. Any of those that you can review on, give us a review. Helps us get noticed. And we appreciate everything that you do for us, and all of you listeners who tune in each week for all of the really random movies that we decide to cover on the podcast. So thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with one of two films that we laid out, and we hope you tune in. Thanks for listening.
Take care.